I now want to shift focus to that big story we're tracking here on the broadcast, and that is the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi. It's trying to ensure that it has a say in school admissions across all city schools. Now, the Arvind Kejriwal government has upped the ante for schools in the capital. They've approved the Delhi School Education Amendment Bill on Monday. So this new bill will give the state government an active role in nursery admission process once it becomes the law. The draft law will no longer allow schools to dominate the process on their terms. Not only this, the Delhi cabinet has also cleared a bill to rationalize school fee. Both the bills will be placed in the Delhi Assembly in the winter session that begins tomorrow. So what the new rules mean for you as far as school admissions? Now, schools will not be allowed to screen either children or their parents. Interviews of any kind in nursery admissions or pre-nursery or prep will not be permitted. In fact, any child 6 years will not be interviewed. Violation of this rule could mean a jail term of up to 10 years or even in extreme cases, the suspension and derecognition of the school. The rules, the law, if it becomes a law, will apply to all schools in Delhi, government, sponsored, privately run. The schools which are calling this blatant interference in their working now say they're even contemplating going to court.
तो बहुत गलत होगा क्योंकि स्कूल दे आर एजुकेशनिस्ट, दे आर नॉट ए क्रिमिनल. वो क्रिमिनल स्कूल वाले नहीं हैं. अगर कुछ गलती करते हैं तो क्रिमिनल एक्ट जो वो लगाना चाहते हो एक्ट तो ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करता है, ऑल इंडिया में एग्जिस्ट करता है. ये तो इनकी मतलब खामखा अपने आप को वोटिंग पावर लेने के लिए अपना उस करने के लिए इनकी तमन्ना है. एक्चुअली ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. और ये जो भी कुछ लाएंगे तो हम लोग जो है फेडरेशन जो है पब्लिक स्कूल एक्शन कमेटी जो भी हमारी संस्थाएँ स्कूलों की वो हाई कोर्ट जाएंगी, सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाएंगी. ये रुकेगा नहीं.
So school managements in some cases are saying they could well think of approaching the court. They say that the Delhi government is only interfering in nursery admissions. And on the broadcast, I want to bring in Annie Koshi. She's the principal of St. Mary's School, Delhi. Ma'am, when the government says that they want to ensure that there are no interviews and no screening, there are broad guidelines that will be put in place, and admissions up to the age of 6 will be on the basis of these guidelines. Is this a good step?
Well, even last year, there was no interviews allowed for children below the age of 6, and there were guidelines laid down by the government. So I would be very interested in knowing what are the new guidelines that the government is going to lay down. Until we know that, really, there's nothing very new to be said about this.
Okay. Now, as some school managements say, and as one of the representatives of the school association was saying, that they could well knock at the door of the courts. Now, is that premature? As you rightly pointed out, whether good, bad or indifferent, we'll only know once you've seen the bill, once it becomes the law. So, talking about going to courts, do the schools fear that the government will start interfering with admissions?
I think what the gentleman was talking about, criminal procedures being initiated against the principal, that's what he was objecting to. But as far as interviews for children below 6 are concerned, this has been there even last year. I think all educationists will agree that it's a good thing not to be interviewing children at that young age. And but I do want to say that sometimes when we need to, especially in the case of special needs children, it's good to know exactly what the needs of the child are in order for the school to do the best that they can for them.
Okay.
So it's good to meet the child in such circumstances.
So perhaps only for special children, but for regular children, it's a good idea.
This can of course be misused by some people.
Sure. I also have Arun Kapoor, director
No, I don't
of
think
the
it's a good idea to have interviews. I think...
Okay. Go on, ma'am. Please finish your sentence.
I was saying I don't think it's a good idea to have interviews, and all of us agree on that particular point, that children who are very young do not need to be interviewed as long as they fall in the neighborhood, which is another part, a clause in the Right to Education Act,
Yes.
that you have to be admitting from the neighborhood. At the same time, I also do wish to say that much of these problems arise because of the fact that schools of a particular quality are not easily or are not enough around in the neighborhood, and so parents are all rushing to some schools, and that's when all this angst is created amongst parents.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
It's the quality.
It's good to hear that the Delhi government is working on the government schools to raise the standards of government schools.
Sure.
I hear very good things about what they are doing, so we look forward to that particular initiative.
Sure. Arun Kapoor, director of Vasant Valley School, also joins me on the broadcast. Sir, a school like Vasant Valley perhaps would get thousands and thousands of applications for a limited number of seats for children under 6. How then will you decide who to admit and who not to admit if there are no interviews? On what basis will you decide this then?
We've been doing this for the last 6 years now, when the the High Court had brought in the point system. And that seems to be working quite well now. So I don't really understand why the need to change a system which is already quite functional, where there are no interviews and there are certain criteria laid down, very transparent, where the neighborhood aspect is very high up on the list of criteria that is put down. So it seems to be working. So, the thing is, I don't know. From what I've heard, that the new law that is coming into place, that they're changing the Rule 145 and replacing the school principal, who's supposed to have been in charge of all admissions, by the director. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Is that going to mean that the director creates one set of rules for all schools across Delhi, and then they hold good for every single school, whether it's a government school or a private school, and that the understanding between private schools and government schools disappears? Or are they going to make a separate set of rules for the government schools and a separate set of rules for
Is there a
private
fear,
schools?
Mr. Kapoor, that this would lead...
Or are they good?
Okay, that lead to more interference, that the Delhi government may perhaps, their officials, politicians may interfere with admissions, and this gives them a stick to do that?
I don't know, but the thing is that, we have to be, using the word interference. If by this they're going to say that every single school in Delhi is equal in terms of admissions, then I think that they need to follow it up with ensuring that every single school in Delhi is equal in the quality of education that is being imparted. You can't have one without the other. So if they are saying that they're going to make, and I've been saying this for many, many years, that if the government school system starts delivering even 60 to 65% of what they're supposed to deliver, a lot of people will go to the government schools. Why would somebody want to pay huge amounts of money
Yes.
and come to a private school?
And when
if
we
they
talk
have
about
access
paying
to
huge sums of money, yes, when we talk about paying huge sums of money, the Delhi government is also talking about putting a cap perhaps on, how much fees can a particular school charge. Now, they haven't put a total cap on it, but they say that there will be a proposal to rationalize school fee, no arbitrary hikes. Now, Ms. Koshi, is that a good idea?
Again, sorry, I didn't
Again,
know. Did you ask me
this
that
is not
question?
something new. There is already a ruling that you cannot increase more than 10% your fees. So, I think if a particular school does more than that, and I believe a parent will be allowed to go to the government, to the department, and register a complaint.
Yes.
Well, I think that's good. Why shouldn't parents go? And there was never any barrier to parents going even earlier to the department and registering a complaint if a school hikes their fee very exorbitantly. And I do want to say that all schools should not be tarred with the same brush.
Okay.
There are schools that do it, and it's good for those schools to be, checked and, kept in line.
Sure. But as far as this no arbitrary fee hikes, is this just tuition fee or also, certain other fees that several schools may be charging, whether it's the bus or certain other facilities that schools provide? Will the government then get to look into all funding, financing and how the money is coming in, Mr. Kapoor?
Again, it's the if. I really don't, because they already do that. I mean, there's nothing new in that. We have to submit our accounts every year, as Anikoshi just said. We already have a cap that you can't raise the fees beyond 10%. And it's fine. So if I've got nothing to hide, so I won't.
So if all of this already exists, so what's this new law all about, Mr. Kapoor, then?
I don't know. You tell me. So it's that the big thing that has happened at the moment today is the replacement of the principal by the director in Rule 145. That's the big situation, and I haven't read the actual act as to what are the details that they said. Will this? That's like I said earlier. What does it actually imply? I suppose that we need much more clarity, because just by saying that the director now is responsible for all admissions, what does that mean? I mean, that's the question I ask. Is he responsible? Is he going to make one criteria, or she going to make one criteria for all schools, whether they are a government or a private schools? Are there going to be different criteria for government schools and private schools? And are there going to be different criteria for different private schools in different areas? So that clarity needs to come in before we can actually make a comment. But the fact of the matter is that it seems at this point in time, from what little is seen, that they do seem to be wanting to kind of curtail the autonomy of the schools. And from past experience, the Supreme Court has also at past kind of upheld the autonomy of the schools. So
interesting.
We need to see whether
curtail the autonomy at some stage.
Supreme Court has
also talking about a committee headed by a High Court judge to look into the school fee hike issue. That's point one. Point two, review the no detention till class 8 policy. Mr. Kapoor, that's a good idea, so that quality of education can be maintained. No detention till class 8 policy, that needs to be reviewed.
See, again, the thing is that to generalize about school education is the worst thing. On one hand, we say that each child is different and we need to kind of differentiate and learn how to differentiate between the needs of different children and not just have one size fits all. And therefore, some children might need to, for various reasons, you could just have an arbitrary decision that, it's just not going to happen. I think that's not a great idea, because you need to be able to deal with the individual child, and what's best for the individual child should be determined, rather than taking one blanket kind of decision that goes across whether it's good for the child or not. If you look at it, the no detention part that you're talking about, I would look at it from a different perspective.
Anikoshi and Arun Kapoor, for the moment, many thanks for joining me here on the broadcast, the principal of St. Mary's School and the director of Vasant Valley. We, of course, will continue to track this story very closely. For the moment, many thanks.
Ni pa ma ga sa ni pa ma ni sa pa sa. जहाँ तक यादें याद आती रहेगी.